Thanks, Larry. Well, let's get started on understanding the root cause analysis. First up is understanding the customer. It's always a challenge to understand who the customer is because we ask ourselves, who is it? Is it me? Is it the doctor? Is it, the guy I'm building this product for? When I look at it, I always think the customer is the last person that's going to touch your product, the person that everything that you're doing is there for. And the way I find that to help me is I go to the Gemba. I go to the Gemba to see where the magic happens and understand how that works. Now, everybody has a Gemba. It could be a kitchen. It could be a factory floor. It could be an ambulatory surgery center. It's where you do what you do that makes the customer happy. Also, when we're looking at solving problems, involving the process owner is a key to this. You can't solve a problem from a distance, and you need to seek out those who are involved in it daily. To focus on the root cause is to say we don't want to go back and just do some quick fix, no band-aids. We really want to get to the source of the problem, and we want to understand, is it never going to happen again? So looking for the root cause drives us in that spot. And finally, the key is simplicity. Keeping things simple is good. Seek creativity over capitalization. Well, what is this lean thing? Well, lean is simply a strategy that focuses on elimination of waste and work in balance. It's really taken and saying, whatever I do, is that good for the customer? If it's not good for the customer, it's not something the customer would be willing to pay for, then why am I doing it going forward? Well, a simple definition of waste. Waste is anything that takes time, consumes space, resources, anything that's in your way of delivering your product to your customer. Right? So look at waste as being barriers, those brick walls that are between you and the final product that you make or the final service that you provide. That's waste. Waste is not people. Waste is not the process. Actually, when you think about and look at it, waste is truly garbage. So get the garbage. As Mom used to say, take the garbage out. Okay? How do you eliminate waste? Well, the first thing you do is you define the value from the perspective of the customer. And you're going to hear me say throughout this presentation, go out and put the customer's shoes on. Go out into your facility, into your hospital, into your plant, into your store, and put the shoes of the customers on and see how your business is flowing through their eyes. Once you see it, bring it back and map it. And the reason you want to map it is because in our world, there are three types of processes. The process of what you think it is, and those are usually the things that people tell me. They'll say, hey, Tony, this is how this works. And then there's the way it actually is. That's when you go out to the Gemba and you actually start talking to some of the process owners and you say, hey, how's this work? How do I get the patient from the ER to the ward? Oh, how do I make my widget and get it from here to there, out the back door to the customer? And I find out the way it actually is done. And then there's the final one, the one that you find in the drawers of the manufacturing engineering department or the standards department, and that's the way it should be. Right? And what happens if you don't do the map, the value stream mapping, you fail to visually see where your opportunities to eliminate waste are. And the reason you want to do a value stream map is because you want to get everybody to release what is in their mind back onto paper so you can see it. And that's when you'll get those, oh yeah, aha moments. Those are the things you do. And that makes it all the more meaningful and also takes the subjectiveness out of the process and brings in some objectiveness because you're going after now areas of process defects as opposed to saying, I think Tony's messing up over there. Now you know all the steps that have to go on. Once you see the value stream map, then you start to decide, how do we create flow? And flow means basically, how do I take one element of work and pass it on defect-free to the next step and just keep it flowing so that as I pass one on, another comes my way. And that means that you got to take a lot of the roadblocks or all the roadblocks out of there. Now, when you talk about passing, we traditionally like to push work. I like to finish my bunch and throw them to the next guy. Well, to eliminate waste, what you want to think about is pull. There's no reason to make more than the next person needs. Think about this. If you're in a bakery and you're selling your bread out on the shelf to the Walmart, all right, would you want to bake a whole bunch of bread if the loaves on the shelves haven't sold? The answer obviously is no. But we do it every day in our facilities. We try to push things to the next area instead of waiting for the customer to tell us how fast to replenish what they've taken. And that's what pull is all about, is take what you've released to the customer and replenish it. The last piece is probably one of the trickiest things in the world, and that's about seeking perfection. Everybody says, oh, great, we're going to go do lean, we're going to be perfect. No, you're not. As I said, I've done this for over 30 years now in many places. I think the last count, I was well over 2,200 different events that I've been on. And you know, I'm learning everything every day. Every day we learn something. Every day is a little bit different. Every day. You know, the old adage, let's get better and let's not let perfection destroy our ways of getting there. That's what we're talking to. It's constantly refreshing and redoing and making ourselves grow as our customers demand. Right? Well, what's an enterprise value stream? Well, an enterprise value stream is understanding the process from end to end, all the value and non-value activities, as well as the formal and informal. So what that means is you're looking at the business as a business. You're not looking at a segment of the business, but you're looking at the whole business. And when you understand the whole business, then you understand all the different systems that you need to go in place, the computer systems, the quality systems, the regulatory systems, whatever they all are, you've got those all there, and they align with the flow of your process. So once you understand that and bring the current state map up in front of you, you now have the foundation for developing a future state. You now know how to move this thing forward, how to make something go. In order to do that, though, you need to develop an implementation plan. The value of the implementation plan, it's a storybook that tells everybody in the organization what you're doing, when you're going to do it, who's going to do it, and what you expect that's going to do. Now, the other piece of the implementation plan is it allows you an opportunity to see incremental chips into the overall improvement plan, because there's no one focus that's going to say, hey, you know, this is going to be the thing we're going to do and it's going to break everything open. No, it's going to be the combination and contributions of all the items on the action plan that are going to help you resolve and grow the business. Well, once you get that point in time, when you've got your plan together, you got to step back and say, okay, do I have a problem? And the first issue in seeing that is saying, just simply saying it, do I have a problem? If you believe you got a problem, you're on the right track. You know, if you think that, well, some defects are going to happen, stop and think about it a second. Yeah, you're recognizing a problem, but don't settle for some defects are going to happen. I know, I'm a realist, that yes, things do break and machines break and things happen, this, that, but I often like to start out by saying, I'm going to do it right the first time and I'm going to do it right every time. Because that drives my mind to say, I need to drive all the elements of waste out of this process. I need to take it apart piece by piece so that it will never fail. And when it does fail, if it does fail, It's ugly. And that's a key word you want to learn. When you look at a problem and you see it, when the problem rears its head, it should be ugly. Because when something is ugly, we attack it and we drive it out. And that's what you want to do. Too often we do workarounds that just kind of like hide the ugly. That's not good. We need to test. We need to inspect. Okay. Yeah, we need to test things. We need to inspect things. But we also need to develop ownership. We need to empower and bring back to the skills that we've trained the fact that you don't want to pass on a defect. You don't want to move something to the next station. If it's bad, take ownership. Make ownership happen. Don't go out and bring ownership to another party that can't fix the problem. Bring the ownership right to the source of the problem. Fix the problem so that it doesn't happen again and move on. This is a tricky process. Yeah? Yep. There's a lot of tricky processes out there. That's why you make the magic that you make. If it wasn't magic, if it wasn't something that you and your skill set could handle, everybody and his brother would be doing it and you wouldn't have a job. So don't lie behind the excuse of saying it's a tricky problem and we can't fix it, we can't solve any problems. Think bigger, think harder. Cosmetic defects will always appear. Only if you let them. So recognize that that's a problem. Drive it, push it, go after it. That's not a true statement. Do your best, move it forward. It's out of spec, but it'll pass the test. That sounds like I'm no worse than the next guy. You're settling for something that's not you. It's not your talent. It's not your energy. It's not your magic, but you're settling for it. And that leads to complacency. And when you have that, you have basically an effect that says, okay, I'm just going to do what I got to do to get by. And when I get by, everything will be hunky-dory. Well, unfortunately, today's customer has got a very low tolerance for just getting by. They demand better and better services. They demand better and better approaches. So you got to look at it from that standpoint and saying, I've always got to keep my pencil sharp. And it's not good enough if it's not good. Okay? The quality manager needs to decide. Needs to decide what? When you have a problem, do you want the manager to come over and say, I got a problem? No. You got a problem. You need to huddle. You need to get together. You need to say, okay, how do we resolve this problem? How do we do it? Yes, maybe the quality manager has some input from some of his skills and sets and things of that nature, but I don't think he needs to decide. I think the owner of the process needs to decide. I think we need to stand up and we need to take the first step. And the first step is facing reality. We got a problem. Okay? Once you face reality and say, we got a problem, boom, let's move on. Now, one of the things that I hear quite often from places is that, hey, we're pretty lean right here, and probably as lean as we can get. As soon as I hear that, I usually see a red flag go up, because that means an organization is not seeing what's right in front of them. They're not facing reality. They're not seeing problems. And you think, let me give you an example as to why you may not see those problems. If you travel to work every day along the same route, over a period of time, you go into autopilot. You just simply put the car in gear, and magically it appears in the parking lot. You fail to see a lot of things that are going on. Now, if you stopped and took a day and said, okay, I'm going to examine the landscape as I go from my home to work, you're going to get one of those aha moments like, wow, I never saw that rusty old silo over there, and I've been traveling this road for 15 years. Or I never saw that old car in the backyard over there. Or I never knew the guy had his mailbox painted pink over here. And the reason you never know that is because you've trained yourself just to see the straight and narrow, and everything blends. And I would tell you, if you walk around your facility today, you very well are walking past problems. I remember a few years back, a guy gave me a tour of a plant, and we walked over the top of some pallets as we were walking through the shop. We didn't walk in the aisleway, we walked over the top of pallets. And I said to him, is this the way it always is? He goes, actually, it's pretty clean today. And I got thinking to myself, he doesn't see what he doesn't see. He doesn't see the waste. He doesn't see the process. He doesn't see this. And I think that happens to us a lot. We see not what our eye sees, but what our mind tells us we're supposed to see. Well, let's continue on with problem recognition here for a sec. Anything that goes wrong is a problem. Yeah, that's pretty obvious. If it goes wrong, it's a problem. Problems occur in all parts of the business. That's an absolute. There's no part of the business that doesn't have a problem. And they have problems in different magnitudes and different directions and things like that. But problems are there, and they're there to challenge us. They're there to see how well we can react and group ourselves. Defects. Well, defects are definitely a problem. If they happen in-house, they're opportunities. If they happen out in the field, they're liabilities. Those are things that really start to really mess with us because we've told the world now when they get outside of our door that, hey, we're not quite in gear with keeping up with what's happening. We can't control our own house. Okay? Equipment breakdowns. Well, equipment breakdowns are a problem in two ways. One, actually mechanically, because fatigue of the machine. And two, because we look at it from the standpoint of, did we listen to the machine? Did we listen to the equipment? Did it tell us that things were going wrong when we should have been doing something about preventive maintenance? It's the same thing in healthcare. You know, you see the patient that comes in, and boy, the guy's smoking, 3 packs of cigarettes a day. He, does a 12-pack for breakfast, and walks in and says, "Geez, I'm really not sure why I'm not feeling well." Well, if we don't look at the telltale signs, equipment does break, and when equipment breaks, so does everything else. It stops the flow of the process. Injuries definitely indicate that we got a problem. If we're not running a safe shop or a safe hospital or a safe store, we got some issues, and those are problems that we need to address. Okay? Losing a sale, losing a customer, losing a patient, those are definitely signs that say, hey, there's something going on. Okay? Losing an important employee. Now, this is one that a lot of people kind of step back and say, well, that might not be such a big deal. Well, many, many years ago, I was taught that when you have to terminate an employee, you have to look inside yourself and ask the question, did I do everything I could possibly do for that person to succeed? And when we lose an important employee, somebody that's key to our operation, we have to deeply ask that question. What is it in our culture? Where is those elements of waste that push this person out the door? Lastly, problem solving and corrective action can be applied to any problem. Yes, they can. But you need to do it with an understanding that it's not just, click your fingers and it fixes itself. It's not something that you can just take lightheartedly. It's something you've got to put effort into in order to get lasting, sustained results. Problems are really opportunities. Absolutely. They're opportunities to make something better, because without problems, you don't push yourself. So you need to see what's going on behind the scenes. You need to see where you are going next and how do you grow. Okay? It's only a problem if it feels frustrating and annoying. If it's negatively affects performance. If it happens more than once, the process yields less than desired outcome. The outputs vary for various reasons. These are absolutely, positively, without a doubt, certainly definitions of a problem. Learning to see what's going on in your environment, to open your eyes, open your ears, and feel what's going on in your facility is part of the lean process and also the foundation of problem solving and corrective action. There is not a facility or a place that I've been that wouldn't fall into one of these categories, wouldn't be something there. And I'll tell you that there's 2 pillars that you should learn in terms of problem solving. Problem solving should always be based on respect for process and respect for people. And if you look at these problem recognition statements, when you got somebody that's frustrated and annoying, there's an issue of respect there of the people. If it negatively affects performance, it could be the way the process is designed, and the process is implemented. If it happens more than once, it's becoming a cultural event. It's something that's embedded in your organization. It needs to be flushed out. If the process yields less than desired outcomes, then you're not taking and asking the right questions. The questions need to be asked, why is that happening? Not pointing fingers, but asking the why. And if output varies for unknown reasons, then you've got a combination of the people in the process are freelancing. There's something that's going on where there's no respect for either. And so from one shift to the next, you're going to get a different outcome. 4 steps to seeing a problem. Well, problem representation. How do we describe what the problem is? And I'm going to talk a little more detail here in a couple slides on that, but think about it. You never can solve something really thoroughly unless you know what you're talking about, unless you really have some groundwork to work on. Right? Why is it a problem? And again, you know, it's a problem because you're not delivering. That's a symptom maybe, but what is the root of the problem? And that's what we want to drive through in the next few minutes here. And the last thing on the problem recognition is, what are the consequences does the problem have? Another way of saying that, what's the cost of doing nothing? Okay. So if you have an infection and you just simply put a Band-Aid on it, do you know the cost of not taking care of that process, or not taking care of that infection? In our organizations, we have many, many infections. A problem is an infection. You can treat an infection on the surface, or you can go to the root cause and fix it for good. Root causes to the problem. Well, there's a lot of tools out there to help to resolve root causes. I'm going to talk a little bit about a fishbone diagram and the 5 why analysis. And each of those, as we get in a little deeper here, we're going to talk about pros and cons, or what do we might be looking for, or how do we do them? What do we expect from those? The root cause tool should give us some direction and really needs to bring us to an action. Right? Once we get an action, that's where the solution to the problem comes in. How do we solve the problem? How do we move it forward? Who's going to do it? When are they going to do it? How are we going to know it's done? When you look at the solution approach, it's all about doing. When you look at the verification, step number 4, it's defining what good looks like. When we look at this, how do we know what good is? And that's really where we want to be looking to see, did our solution solve the problem? If it didn't, time to go back to step 1 and redo. The old plan, do, check, act, it's really the fundamentals of how we do things. Fixed it and keep it going. Well, let's go back to that describing the problem. When you're looking at describing a problem, one of the things you want to do is you want to ask questions like, why did we didn't see this happen? Where did this happen? What's going on? You really want to kind of be a detective in setting up this problem, developing focused, specific statements that describe and quantify the unsatisfactory condition. In other words, you don't want to say, it's bad out there. You want to put it in, 50% of our product comes back to us. 6% of our patients in our ER walk out because the waiting time's too long to get seen. Things that are there, keep it simple, but make sure it has impact. Make sure it's something that can be clearly understood by everybody. As I said, you know, if 6% of your clientele is leaving, that says something really powerful. If you add on to that, 6% of our clientele leave because the waiting times exceed 4 hours, Now you're narrowing the problem down. Now you're getting to the point where you can talk to facts. It's not an emotional thing. It's objective. It's there. Here's some examples of some errors in describing problems. You know, we get too large. Something that says underwriting has a 50% rejection rate. Okay, so what does that mean? I mean, that 50%, is that, you know, is that something we want to set the world on fire about? Or do we maybe only have 100 items, so 50% is 50 of them? Oh, okay. Rather, we should say something like only 40% of all new transactions are underwritten automatically through the scorecard, down from 80% this time last year. Now what you've done is you've actually set up a scenario that says you knew where you were. This is what you described as good, and you've gone backwards. Something's broken. Okay. Vague problem statements. Customers complain about wait time for customer service. Okay. How about if we said 1 of 10 customers experience hold times greater than 5 minutes when calling customer service? Think about that in your own world. You know, when you call into that 1-800 help me line and they tell you, you know, the next available representative will be there in approximately 15 minutes, where are you? Right? Where's your head? What are you thinking about? If somebody was to solve the problem by telling the team to go fix customers complaining about wait time, well, 15 minutes for you might be a long time. 15 minutes for the guy next to you might not be that bad. So what we need to do is find out where that point in time is that the customer complaints start to become out of hand. Okay, greater than 5 minutes. Under 5 minutes, people tolerate. Over 5 minutes, not so much. Okay? Stating the solution in the problem statement. This is a very, 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 very common thing. When we try to bring teams out, but at the same time, we tell them what we want them to do. It kind of defeats the purpose of a team. You know, we need to increase our IVR penetration. Okay, so you just told me what I need to do, as opposed to saying our customer service levels are consistently below our service level agreement with a target of 90%, with an abandonment rate of over 40%. Okay. Now, what you've done in that second statement is you've presented the problem in a fashion that allows me to start using some of my creativity and start saying, let me look around. The first statement, all it's doing is put me on a railroad track to fix this problem. And when they fix that problem and it doesn't solve the issue, you're immediately going to say, well, that didn't work. Wrong. First thing you have to do is describe the problem in detail. Okay. The next thing we look at is metrics. Okay. You can't improve what you don't measure. Simple, simple statement. If you look at measurements, it's about the health. It's about understanding where you are in the process, what's going on, and how does it feed back to you. Are my patient satisfaction scores going up? Is my profitability going up? Is my quality going up? Is my wait times going down? Measurements that are there that are pertinent to the business, and also things that are universal that people throughout the organization can understand. Okay? The nice thing about metrics, they don't lie. You know, I relate a lot of times to the scorecard on a golf cart. You know that little box that you put your score in? It's small for a reason, because all that fits in that little box are numbers, not excuses. Hey, there's our buddy, the fishbone diagram. Fishbone diagrams are a neat little tool. You know, they're one of many tools that we look at, many things that are in the problem-solving network to help us understand what's going on. You know, some of the others are the Pareto diagrams, the control charts, the histograms, patient satisfaction reports, benchmark studies, things like that we've seen before. But I like the fishbone diagram simply from the fact that it kind of coordinates everything that's there. It's a method for organizing ideals. It allows us to identify, explore, and display possible causes or conditions. Now, the fishbone diagram you see up on the screen right now is a fairly simplistic one. The true construction of a fishbone diagram would be really like the structure of a fish. There's many, many, many bones in there. There's a main spleen, but off of that main spleen comes lots and lots of side bones, and then off the side bones are another side bones. So a true, really good fishbone diagram is a mess. It looks like a fish. It looks like the skeleton of a fish. It has things coming off the tentacles there, I guess you call them, and then they expand out. They come out. Now, to do it and do it correctly, what you really want to do is really drive the question down under your category. What are those things that are causing me problems? Why are they causing me problems? What's happening in that respect? So that you get everything focused on one particular area. You know, why is the customer, in this particular case, why are the customers' complaints not being resolved in 24 hours? Well, it could be the men and women, it could be materials, it could be methods, it could be Mother Nature, it could be machines, it could be measurements. All these things are the big categories. And then below that are the subcategories that we want to address. What are those things within the category? So once you break them down, you get into those subcategories and you start to see there, things start to rise as to what are the things that we can incrementally change to improve, say, materials. We start to improve there. If we improve there, then we can see that that's going to have an impact on complaints being resolved in 24 hours. If we go into each of these things and start to flush out where the improvements come, jointly, we end up improving the entire process. The next piece I'd like to speak a little bit about is the 5 whys. And this is one of my personal favorites. The 5 whys is a tool that can be extremely frustrating. It can be somewhat, let's say, somewhat inaccurate if not done correctly, and it can be an overwhelming aha moment when you take the time to do it. Now, the reason I say it can be frustrating is we all have experienced the young kid, you know, the little 5-year-old or the 3-year-old that comes up and tugs on your pant leg and says, "Why?" And when you answer them, they say, "Why?" And they keep going, "Why?" until either they exhaust themselves or they come up to a point in time when something clicks with them and it's there. It's now like something I can grab and they can run with. Okay. It's frustrating for the person that's being asked because it seems like you're challenging my authority. You're challenging me. You're saying to me, I'm questioning why you do something. Well, what I would suggest to you is this. First thing you do when you start talking about the 5 whys is tell everybody to take a deep breath and sit back and remember, we are not attacking the person, we're attacking the process. We're going after what is there that is preventing us from delivering to our customer. Okay? So 5 whys is a method of breaking down the problem to the root cause. It's used for problem analysis and problem identification. That's pretty clear. The application, when you need to implement corrective action of a problem, you want to be sure your actions will address the root cause and not just the symptoms. And we're going to expand that a little bit farther and say, when you look at the 5 whys, you need to stop each time you come up with a solution and look back and say, is my answer to that the first thing that came to my mind, or have I given it some thought? And we'll talk a little more in the next slide on that particular. But okay, so do a little example here from Dr. Uno. He asked a question. Why did the machine fail? Well, the motor burned out. Why did the motor burn out? The shaft seized. Why did the shaft seize? There was no lubrication. Why was there no lubrication? The filter was clogged. Why was the filter clogged? It was the wrong size mesh. There's the root cause right there, is that we put the wrong part into the process. The result of that was we lost the process. we lost the motor. Now, recently I was conducting a 5 whys seminar, and we were going through this process of, what is the 5 whys and how do you do this, da da da. And the projector stopped. The overhead projector shut down on me. So the host got up and went over to the phone and called the maintenance department and simply said, the projector in classroom 1 is down. Poof, end of discussion. About 5 minutes later, maintenance guy shows up, bulb in hand, ladder, climbs up. Now, as he's going up the ladder, one of my students said to him, why did the bulb burn out? And he first comment was well, this is one of them cheap old machines. They bought this thing to save money, and the darn thing always blows up on me. And then a minute later, the guy said to me again, why'd that go out? And he said, well, it burned out because it got hot. And he goes, why did it get hot? And he goes, well, because the air was not circulating. And why wasn't there enough air circulating? Well, there wasn't enough air circulating because the filter was clogged. And then the guy looked at it and said, why is the filter clogged? Well, because it hadn't been cleaned. Now, at the end of this process, the guy looks at it, and sure enough, that filter was clogged. But here's the point we're trying to make. The machine tells the maintenance department when to clean the filter. There's a little green light on the machine that blinks and says, filter clean required. That's being ignored. Instead, this organization is spending $800 every time they blow a bulb out to replace it. So we want to kind of look at that from the standpoint of, we've uncovered the root cause. Filters aren't clean, but we need to go a step further and ask ourselves, why are we failing to see that? The 5 whys of non-detection, which is self-reflection. It's asking ourselves, why did we fail to see that as a problem? And that is extremely important, because one of the things that we don't do is we don't take the time to stop and say, okay, who or why caused that process? Why did that process break? What were the things that we were missing as an organization? What did we do? How did we train ourselves so that we don't do what we're supposed to do, but instead do something different? So as you're going through this and you're doing the 5 whys and you're thinking about this, remember you're building a staircase. So this thing should logically run its way back and run its way down, so that when you do solve that root cause, when you solve it, it's not coming back again. What to avoid when you're looking at the root cause? Well, knowing the answer when you come into it. I don't want you to think, I just want you to do. Well, in order to avoid problems and avoid things going down the path, what you want to do is nurture a foundation of, here's the problem, give me your creativity, show us what you can do. Okay, rushing through the 5 whys. One of the things that is extremely frustrating, and this goes back to, I guess, maybe when we were kids. I mean, you'd ask your mom, why do I need to brush my teeth? And she'd say, because I said so. Well, that's kind of like rushing through the 5 whys. When you don't give it thought, when you're not exhausted, when you're not tired after you do one, then you really haven't done getting far enough to make sure it doesn't happen again. You're not giving enough analysis. You're not investigating enough. 5 whys is like real good detective work. You're getting in there, you're looking at those things, and if you don't want to be a good detective, if you don't want to do that, then the 5 whys is not going to help you. Out there, what should you be looking for? Well, you should be looking for those visual management systems. Are problems visible? Remember I said earlier, make things ugly? Often I'm asked when we set up a work center, can we set this up so that we can make 10 extra pieces because we have a high scrap rate? And my immediate answer to that is always no. Set it up in one-piece flow. So that if one breaks and you have a defect, it's ugly. Visual management, it's ugly. When you got 2 sitting on a bench, it's only built for 1, that's ugly. That's time to jump in. Fix the problem. Don't hide the problem with another piece. Fix it and move it. Okay? Is the environment safe and clean? it totally amazes me sometimes when we don't think about safety. The reason it amazes me is this. If I get hurt on the job, that means that my peers have to pick up my load and continue that in order for the customer to move on, which puts additional burden on them and puts them in additional risk because now they're trying to do more than the work content of their job. And this happens in any sector that you look at. What we want to look at is how do we make things safe so that we don't have lost time accidents, so we don't have those. All of those help us support and generate the flow in the system. Are the required information, measurements, and metrics displayed and updated? Hey, you know, a metric is no good sitting in somebody's drawer. A patient satisfaction report doesn't help a hospital get better sitting in somebody's drawer. You're not going to hurt people's feelings. You're not going to make people cry if you share knowledge like that, if you share it, if they understand. Remember, everybody in your organization is an owner. You're never going to see a customer come in and say, I'm going to fire Tony because I got a lousy product last month, and I think Tony's responsible, so I'm going to fire Tony. What they'll do is they'll come in and say, hey, company XYZ, I'm all done with you. Everybody. You, done, gone. Right? So treat your guys on your floor as owners. And owners need to see what's going good, what's going bad, how they can help. They need to be a part of how they can help make things better. Is there standard work posted? You know, we can't expect somebody to do something if we don't show them what the expectations are. And we can't hold somebody accountable for something if we don't post the expectations through our standard work. Can you clearly understand progress? One of my all-time favorite things to do is when I go into a new facility, especially like a manufacturing facility, is I like to go back and start my chore in the shipping area. Because I can tell in the shipping area the state of the organization. You know, if it's a busy, constant moving area where things are flowing and it doesn't look like, you know, a demolition derby coming through there, wow, I'm impressed. But if I go back there and everybody's playing checkers and the shipping dock is, you know, one big ghost town, it tells me that while all that noise is going out there in the facility, we're not flowing. We're not seeing things come through. So we need to be able to visually see some of these markers and understand the state of progress. You know, and the state of progress would be simply, are we ahead of schedule or behind schedule? That's pretty easy by looking at things by an hour-by-hour board. Where are we supposed to be and where are we actually? Is there efficient level of work in process and finished goods and materials? Now, some of our friends here on the call in the healthcare would say, well, wait a minute. You're really off the deep end here because we don't have finished goods. We don't have work in process. You sure do. When you schedule everybody into surgery at 7:30 and you've got everybody out there, those people are work in process. That's WIP. And finished goods, well, your finished goods is somebody going home, discharge. And how do you get them out through the discharge process? Where does it go? So, how are our products and processes developed? That's talking to respect for people. Where are we going with the people? What are we doing to help them and get to some of the areas that are going on? Okay. Machinery and equipment, running in good condition. You can't run a business with a broken saw. Kind of hard to build a house with a screwdriver. So you need to keep things there. You know, do you see any leakage or damage? And that's simply, are you taking care of your tools? Whatever your tools, your trades are. Okay, proposals and implementation, counterpart measures. Okay. One of the things that you want to look at, once you come down to the root cause, now is the development of the solution set. How do I solve this problem? And that's where it comes in, the implementation plan, the creativeness, the countermeasures. Who do I have to bring in to do this? Can I just do it and fix it? Do I need a team of cross-functional people to fix it? Do I need a project Do I need to get some individual or some individual function to sit down and do this thing? That's the development of the solution set once you come through the 5 whys or through the fishbone. Once you've got the root cause in your hand and you know what the root cause is, how are you going to solve it? And remember, when you're considering this, when you solve a problem, what are the consequences, the contingencies? So if I fix this, is it going to mess up something else? If it's going to affect somebody else, then it's not a fix. It's a push. Okay? It's really great if your shop looks really, really nice, but you just buried the guy next to you. Okay? Or if we can get the patients, well, man, we can get them through the onboarding real quick, but then they wait in the pre-op because there's no place to put them. Or they wait in the post-op because there's no place to take them. What have we done? We've pushed our problem to another center. That's not solving the problem. What is the implementation plan? Well, the implementation plan is a structured vehicle that tells us what to do, when we need to have it done, who's going to champion it, and what we expect is going to happen when that happens. Who needs to do what, including the time frame. That's part of that implementation plan. You can't put a plan out there without somebody's ownership. Somebody needs to own it and live it. How do we build this plan? Well, we need to understand roles and responsibilities. We need to know who's doing what, who can do what, who's going to take the responsibility. When somebody says they're going to take the responsibility, they're saying, I have the capability to do this. I have the capacity to do what's needed. And also, I accept the consequences if I don't promise or complete the promise as stated. New documents and checklist. How do we communicate what the change is? How do we get it out there? Through the new documents, through checklists, through training plans, through new reports. Those are things that we need to do as part of our implementation to take it from, hey, here's a problem, to here's a solution, and here's how the solution is going to be implemented, to here's who's responsible, and this is what we expect to happen. Because if it doesn't happen the way we expect to happen, our metrics are going to tell us that, and we're going to go back and readjust. Right? But if as it goes through and it does work the way we expect it to happen and we finalize it, then we want to complete the standard work so we can repeat that process over and over and over again with any set of help. Okay? Let's follow the directions, put it together. Okay? IKEA has made a great fortune out of putting pictures together so that anybody can put the furniture together. You don't need to hire a master carpenter to do some of this stuff. Okay. All right. Other tasks to be delivered from the team. You know, as you go through and you do root cause analysis, you're going to come up with some things, and they're going to be things that go in parking lots. These are things that are, yeah, that's there, but it's a little out of the scope from what we're talking about. Let's put it over here so that as a team we move it forward to the next level and get it addressed by maybe another team or another group. Those are the things that we need to make sure that are on our task list to complete. So, in summary, what have we talked about today? Well, we talked about understanding the customer and how valuable that perspective of putting the customer's shoes on and walking through the process and understanding where to go next and where the customer sees things are next. We've done that. We've talked about going to the Gemba and how important it is to become part of the Gemba. There's no improvement that can be made without a trip to the Gemba. Involve the process owners. Owners involve the owners in the process. And process owners, the people that do the work every day, own the business. And I'd like you to think about that. You know, we have corporate, or we have general managers, we have vice presidents, we have CEOs, we have all these things. But the true owners of the business, the ones that control the cost, the quality, and the delivery that the customer sees are the process owners that build the process and make the magic every day. Those are the true owners of the business. Without them, the business is no business. So involve them when you're looking at root cause analysis. Lastly, focus in on the root cause. Don't settle for, yeah, it was that. Settle for, I know this is the issue. I know how deep we did. I've defined the problem clear enough and specific enough so that I've directed the department or the team to the real issues and let them find the real causes. So again, focus on the root cause by defining what it is, by establishing measurements, by demanding creative solutions, and by making sure that whatever you do, you measure. Now, with all that said, the last point is implement your simple solutions first. And the reason you want to do that is simply this. We talk about seeking perfection, but in reality, we don't want to let perfect get in the way of better. Every time you make a process better, you take an incremental step, but you also open up another avenue of creativity for the team to look at, for the organization to look at, and that's what's going to springboard you into the next big thing. Well, I thank you for your time and wish you all the best in solving problems. Hopefully this was helpful to you, and take care.